Welcome back to the Florida Aviation Network, and I'm Ben Coleman, one of your hosts here for the 42nd Sun and Fun International Convention and Fly-In. It's always a pleasure to be here and bring you compelling information, both safety, educational, and informative, because aviation, if you're not here, you're not there. It's where it's at. That's a quick little phrase I just coined there. But anyway, we do have with us here a face that you've probably seen slammed around in the sky, smashed into a helmet, pulling G's, watching him grin. He's not grinning like that because he's having a good time. He's trying to breathe in the G-forces. Exactly. Michael Goulian.
Ben, thank you for having me.
It's always good to have you here.
Glad to be here.
I will never, I saw a little piece of paper and somebody had misspelled your name.
Uh-oh.
I said, well, Michael Goulian's supposed to be here. Michael Goulian. Michael Goulian.
That's my French brother.
Michel.
Michel.
Tell us, in your paper that you want to talk about, you said air show. And air show, that's a pretty wide swath. But Mike, you get around to so many events, Red Bull air races. I know we're going to have Red Bull doing a demonstration here. Yep. I'm sure you're going to be part of that.
I am, yeah, for sure.
And tell us a little bit more about
when people ask about, what is it that makes air shows so special and what's special about the Sun and Fun part of this for us? Well, what a lot of the people might not know is the air show world is a pretty small world. And there's events all over the United States, but there's just a small handful of us that actually go around the country performing nationwide. Obviously the Thunderbirds and the Blue Angels and the Snowbirds and our parachute demonstration teams are part of that as well. And so what people see when they come to Sun and Fun is really sort of the best of a small family of performers that are out there flying around the country. So just this past weekend we had air shows in California. There was one at Luke Air Force Base. I was with the Blue Angels down in Key West. And so now we're all descending upon Sun and Fun to try to add a little bit of sort of afternoon flair to what's otherwise known as really just a flying convention.
Well, I tell you, Michael, you have been here, let's see, we were just talking about we wanted to develop back your first Sun and Fun.
Yeah.
1990, 91?
1991. So I won the Advanced National Aerobatic Championships in a pit special, and I had transitioned to a monoplane. And back at that point, it was one of those, how am I going to pay for this aerobatic fun that I'm going to be doing? So I needed to get into the airshow business because I couldn't afford the airplanes that I needed to create the next level to become a national champ in Unlimited. So with my first Staudacher airplane, really Sun and Fun was the first organization that reached out to me just as a young kid, 20 years old, and said, we would love for you to come here and perform. So when I come back to Sun and Fun every year, now quite a few years later, I think back to that first time and how far I've been able to come in the sport, and it's really because of people believing in you. And it would be nice to think that it might be what I've done, but really not really. It's what the people have done to help you. And when you care a lot about aviation and a passion, people want to help you, and it's really fun. And that started with me at Sun and Fun.
Well, I can assure you, I was here in the 91 area, and think I could remember your first. It was announcement. Billy Henderson mentioned, "Yeah, we got this young kid.
Yep.
He's pretty good."
Yeah.
And it's the stimulating thing of watch this grow over the years, and you've watched it grow.
Yep.
And the transition, and some for the better, some for the worse, but it's a transition. Life is a transition. And you guys, you dedicate so much, and it's a performance. Where did you get your being? Where are you from, Mike?
Well, I grew up just outside of Boston. My family has a flight school there called Executive Flyers Aviation that my dad started back in 1964. So I grew up as a hockey player, baseball player, golfer, all that good stuff. But then it's time to become an adult, and when I was about 15, my dad brought me to work and
don't say that out loud.
No kidding,
don't
right?
Say that out
Trying
loud.
not to, and gave me a job, and it was one of those $5 an hour washing airplanes, fueling airplanes, learning what the business was about. And my dad never really pushed me into aviation, but he exposed me to it. And then just after 1 week, my first week out of school, working at the airport, I said, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. So I've been lucky to be able to do that.
Well, and we've mentioned this several times here. It's like, it's really not really a job. It's a hobby. It's a habit. It's a fun thing that just happen to make some money at. And you know, people think that, oh, he must be an air show performer. He makes millions of dollars a year. Guys, you don't believe how hard these guys have to work.
Yeah, don't we all wish?
But you know the old adage that make $1 million bucks in aviation.
Absolutely. Start with two, exactly.
But it depends on what you worth, what you value, and I think you value. I know you love people.
Yeah.
You love to share your passion, and you live what you do. You're very your willpower, your discipline, and if you don't know discipline, watch these guys when they go through their routine, particularly the Red Bull routine, to practice and get into shape. You got to be in good shape to pull those G's.
Yeah. So this is it is basically it's almost a full contact sport, right? So when we're here at Sun and Fun, we're working all day, meeting with customers and fans and sponsors and so forth, and then flying the air show in the afternoon. It's a long week, and that's where your fitness level comes in. But as you said, one of the things that I think separates a lot of the air show performers from a lot of the community is the passion. We love what we do. When I wake up in the morning, I think of myself as an aerobatic pilot, and it's what you think about when you go to bed, and it's what you think about when you wake up in the morning. And it's one of those things where people say, it's really cool that your avocation is your vocation too. And I think for all of the young guys and girls that are out there watching this, that's the thing. It doesn't matter what you do, just make sure you love what you're doing, because then you don't have to go to work a day in your life. And I feel like the hard parts of this job, which are being on the road a lot, so I'll be on the road 70% of a year, and having a wife and a 9-year-old daughter makes it hard, but it's the sacrifice for doing something that not a lot of people can do.
Well, you mentioned not that a lot of people can do, but aerobatics is it's a discipline, and it's an acquired skill. Some have a natural ability about it, but where do they go other than Sean D. Tucker School of Aerobatics?
Yeah. Well,
talking to Bob Hoover, he always touts Sean D. Tucker.
Sure.
And he's the top. He's top man. I love Sean.
He does great. And no, it's one of those things that I say it's something not a lot of people can do. Anybody can do it. You have to have the willpower to go year after year after year until you can make it a career. But there's a lot of aerobatic schools around the United States. So there's some great ones in Florida. Patty Wagstaff has a great school in St. Augustine with a decathlon, which she uses as a primary trainer, and then she uses an extra 300 as an advanced trainer. Debbie Wren Harvey has a school in Houston, Texas. And there's just schools all over the country. In our flight school, we have a decathlon that we do basically confidence training with for newly minted private pilots to go out there and, hey, you don't have an attitude indicator anymore. Let's feel the airplane and use our hands and feet and our eyes to fly this machine. And it's a great way for a pilot to get better.
Have you seen, speaking of the community, Lee Louderback's his upset training?
Yes.
Okay. Excellent program for the corporate flyers.
Amazing.
And it's that type of thinking out of the box that I look forward to seeing what you're going to come up with, because at some point, I mean, Red Bull, tell us a little about the Red Bull demonstration. What are you guys going to do for us?
So this is really exciting for me. We've been trying to get Red Bull to do this for a few years now, either at Oshkosh or here at Sun and Fun, and it's awesome. And for Sun and Fun to have a little bit of vision to see this is great. So essentially, Kirby Chambliss and I, who are the two Americans in the Red Bull Air Race, we're going to use Edge 540s. Kirby's going to use his air show plane, and I'm going to use an Edge that Kirby's providing to me, so we won't be using my air show plane. But we're going to set up a 3/4 racetrack here at Sun and Fun, and Kirby and I will be going through the pylons just like we would be at a Red Bull Air Race, so people will get to see and feel what it's like. It's a pretty intense thing, and actually the track here will be a little challenging to fly with some wind conditions, so it'll be pretty cool.
Mike, I got to share this with you. The other day in Daytona, walked into the Mexican bar and they got 3 TV screens in there. We just go in there for margaritas and maybe to eat, but more for margaritas. And there was one Red Bull Air race. I think it's Indianapolis. I think you had on a horse track.
Oh, in Ascot, in England.
Ascot, England.
In England.
And they had it on one of the TVs, and then the other 2 TVs had something else going on. I went to the bar manager, says, "Would you mind putting that on the TVs over here?"
Yeah.
So not a problem. So we went and put the air race up there,
Yep.
and the bar got quiet.
Yeah.
I mean, normally you hear the buzz going around in the bar, everybody chit-chatting and do that. It went quiet. Everybody was watching the air race.
Yeah, it's a pretty spectacular thing. And the air race, one of the things that people don't realize is it's tape delayed here on Fox Sports in the States. It happens about 7 days after the race, but most of the Red Bull Air Race is live worldwide on TV in about 60 countries. So you can either catch it live on a Sunday, or it's, as you say, it's played at all kinds of times during the day on Fox.
It can be played any time of the day, and people are going to watch this. The content is there, and we need to get this out to the public as much as we can and more often.
It's the Red Bull Air Race is so cool because it really is technicians, airplane engineers, pilots, and teams pushing to try to find every little last ounce of performance out of a plane, and it's a really difficult thing to do, and now we're winning and losing races by tenths of a second. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 tenths will lose you a race. So it's pretty amazing to see that everybody comes up with 14 different airplane designs, yet they're all within a blanket of each other. It's amazing.
A blink of an eye.
Yeah,
And,
it really is.
One of the guys in the bar asked, "Well, what are you just going through the gates?" And I said, "Well, they're racing against time, but pay particular attention to all the races that you're looking at there. Every time that you see a control movement, that's time.
That's right.
Every time you see a bump of the controls, it's time. Look for the ones that are doing it smooth, every move, because every time you pull or bump on that control surface, it costs you a millisecond of time.
Absolutely.
So that's why these guys, this is the competition. So I thought it was a race, they would get out on the course together and said, it's been attempted, but it's just not a safe thing to do. When you're out there, you're focused on the pylons and not staying away from your buddy in the air. So, but watch for the smoothness. And I said, watch this guy. Oh, here comes Goulian. Okay, watch him.
Yep.
You're a smooth dude.
Well, you try. You only move the controls when you have to.
And
that's the idea, right?
You're smooth. You're
Trying.
smooth. And if you keep practicing.
Another 20 years, I might get there.
You're gonna do better each time you fly. But the team sport, the aircraft, how much do you depend on that aircraft performing for you?
An unbelievable amount. So the engines that we use are Lycoming Thunderbolt engines. They're prepared by Lycoming in Pennsylvania, and they're all pretty close to the horsepower rating that they're supposed to have. So theoretically, all the engines are pretty equal, and all the propellers are Hartzell propellers. So we have the same firewall forward. So then it's really all aerodynamics. So how are your control surfaces working? What kind of airfoils do you have for your wheel pants and canopies and cowlings and fairings and all of that good stuff? And then also something that we're doing now, if you look in the latest Rebel Air races, they all have winglets on them. So just much like an Airbus or a Boeing, we've realized that these fancy winglets are making a smaller circle, giving us more speed at the end of that turn and making the airplane faster.
Vortex turbulence, that's drag.
Exactly.
So, and have you guys gone to, I know you haven't gone to the Q-tip props as far as
No, so the propellers are Hartzell claw props, so everybody runs the same propeller.
Basically scimitar design, they do a good job.
Yeah.
The 580s that you're running.
540s in the air race.
In the air race, it's 540s?
Yep.
But it's
580
580s.
in the air, she'll play 540 in the air. And the air race
And Hartzell and Lycoming, they just sit back waiting to, I hope these guys can break our engine.
Yeah.
Because they let you test their engines.
Yeah, we really are running them to the max, which is good for them. And it's good for us knowing that we have equipment in there that we can rely on. Because we go to many, many places around the world where there's no options, really. So we go to Budapest, Hungary, and fly right on the Danube River. We fly in Abu Dhabi right over the Corniche, which is the water. In Japan, we go right off the coast of Tokyo. So we want the engines to run. We need them to give us performance, but they need reliability as well.
Your maintenance staff. I'm a mechanic by trade, and maintenance is always dear to my heart. But you got to depend on your push-pull rods, your torque tubes, your rod end bearings. I mean, you guys go over, I'm sure, every inch of that aircraft every time.
What we do is, I think, similar to the military and airshow flying and Rebel Air races, you build a special relationship with the crew chief. You have to rely on that person because we don't have time to spend hours and minutes looking at the airplane. You look at the crew chief and say, is it ready to go? And they say, yes, sir, it's ready to go. And you get in there ready to give your 150% in front of a bunch of people on a racetrack, and you have to have the confidence in the machine that it's going to work.
Or if that same person says, Mike, it's not ready yet. You don't go, well, why? Tell me why. Okay, I'll wait till you tell it's ready to go.
Yeah, as the guy that is sort of in charge of the team, everybody knows what I expect and the level of detail and execution that we want, and we all have to live to reach that goal. So that's what we're doing, is we set a really high standard and everybody meets it.
Where are we going to go from here, Mike?
Boy, I've seen all kinds of improvements in airplane design, both in the aerobatic world. The Extra 330 SC that I'm flying now is something that just 15 years ago you couldn't believe that airplanes could do that. And really, carbon fiber technology has changed the world. It's made everything really strong, very lightweight, allows us to move the center of gravity of the plane around. So the further aft the center of gravity, the better it tumbles around, all that good stuff. And then from the Red Bull Air Race, who knows where it's going to go? Everybody pushes, and that's what happens with racing, is one team comes up with something, then the next team comes with something else, and then everybody's pushing the envelope and trying to raise the ladder. So I see that the air race is really helping fund general aviation's innovation in a lot of ways.
Well, and the safety factor, and because honestly what you do is really not safe. However, it can be done safely. And there's a big difference between safe, the definition of free from harm.
Yeah.
Well, we're sitting here right now, we're not free from harm. That ultralight could fall on us right there.
Yeah, I mean,
but it's safe. It's done safely. And that's what I admire about you guys.
It's not a secret that what we do is pretty dynamic, and you get that. And there's a bunch of factors that they enhance the safety of your program. One, your training, right? So, coming from a competition aerobatic background and having a coach me for 20 years. So for me, flying the airplane is secondary. It's like an innate skill. I don't have to think about how do I move the controls. It just doesn't happen anymore. Then the second thing is your personal fitness is important. You have to be ready to go day in and day out. And so while everybody goes out for a nice dinner at night, you have to go home and go to bed and make sure you're ready to go the next day. And those are just the little things. And then the technology in the airplane and how you manage that technology. So making sure that the crew chief has everything that they do to make sure mechanically the airplane is sound. And then understanding that there's the opportunity to, if you will, show off, push the envelope, blah, blah. We don't do that. A professional in this business knows where the limit is, how to get to that limit and not cross over it. And that's really, I think, when you look at like a young race car driver, they might do something that a Dale Earnhardt Jr. or a Jeff Gordon or Jimmy Johnson might not do because they've been around a while. And they talk about young race car drivers. Well, the air show world is not as forgiving as a racetrack. So we have to learn through trial and error and really from lessons learned where your envelope is and make sure that you don't cross it.
Speaking of, I think it was Bob Hoover always said, a man's got to know his limitations.
That's exactly right.
And that's wise words from somebody who's pushed it.
Honestly, you just can't let what people write about you in the newspaper or your own ego get in the way, because that's when you start to become unsafe.
Michael, one thing most important about everything else we talked about, it's kind of cool, but the little ones.
Yep.
The little ones. How are we going to get the little ones in here to want to be sitting where you are, wearing your suit?
I think just giving them inspirational things to do, right? And what we do in the air race and what we do in the sky, and just seeing what the aviation industry has to offer, it's different. It's different, it's exciting, and that's what we have to expose people to and make them know that in the aviation world, there's passionate dreamers, and it's a good place to be.
And anybody, you got to know that anybody can do this. If you try hard enough and you want to put forth the effort, the path is going to be available
That's
to you.
exactly right.
But don't wait for somebody to lay it out in front of you.
No.
You got to go get it.
That's right.
You got to sweep hangers. You got to pump gas.
Yep.
You got to wash airplanes. You got to scrub bellies. You got to do some maintenance from time. You got to get your hands dirty.
It is the way to do it. You have to learn from the bottom up.
Well, Michael, as usual, it's always a pleasure to have you.
Thank you very
it's
much.
also
Great to be
much
here.
more pleasure to watch you doing your things through the sky.
Thanks, my friend.
Okay, and we're going to knock it off on this one, and we're going to see another compelling show here at the Florida Aviation Network. Ben Coleman, I'll see you next show.